What jazzes me about doing our work and being able to talk about all of this is it's just so incredibly exciting. It's so much fun to be a part of. It's so much fun to think about this work that we do to improve our craft and become greater. I mean, we want to be the very best fundraisers on this planet. Why settle for anything less? If you're going to do the work, don't you want to be the very best? You want to be the very best you can possibly be. What's work about? Work is about our dignity. We want to be tired at the end of the day because we busted our chops because it matters. Let's be all out as fundraisers. Let's not be half-timers. Let's be all wholehearted as fundraisers. Let's take our work and give it the seriousness it deserves and raise the sums our organizations need and deserve. Before I get into this, I saw a report the other day, a Chronicle of Philanthropy, top 50 markets and how they ranked in terms of charity. In the top 50, St. Louis came in at 31. In terms of disposable discretionary income, we're 7th. We support at the level of 31, but we have the income of the 7th. You think there's some running room here? That year, the total charity given to St. Louis at 4.1% translated to $1.4 billion. Every percentage point is worth about $350 million to us, to our charities. If we help take it from 4 to 5, that's $350 million we get to spread around. We take it up to 6%, that's 2/3 of $1 billion we get to spread around. We take it from 4 to 7%, that's $1 billion a year to spread around. Would you like to have more money for your work? People say, well, there's not enough money to go around. There's 96% to go around yet. Only 4% has been given away. Now, how does that grow? It grows by the work you and I do. It grows because of the value of the organizations we represent and how we represent them. How we think about donors, how we develop donors, how serious we are about what we do. We're the ones that raise that percentage in the right direction rather than the wrong. I'm asking you, am I a fool to say this? I believe it's true. We have that kind of power in the positions we have, and we have the responsibility to make that happen. I would love, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we're gathered here. We got to revisit. It's old times. Let's talk about all our war stories in the last 3 years. And we're talking about the 5%. We've grown 1%. Our work has helped raise another $350 million a year in this community for our organizations. Would that be something to celebrate? I want to be here for it. I'd like us to call a meeting because it's happened. So let's set our sights higher. Let's have higher expectations for our donors. Let's not think less of our donors. Let's elevate them in our sight. They can do more for us. They should do more for us. Why? Because we've talked about it all morning. The benefits they receive by participating with us. You know, that 375% growth we were able to enjoy at UMSL over 4 years, most of those donors are the donors you ask money for. You deal with those same donors. You're asking money from those donors too. And they've got 96% left for you. I mean, that is a powerful, powerful idea. Okay, leadership. Our job, as we've talked about, is to provide leadership to address the goals and objectives of our organizations. We are to demonstrate character, competence, confidence. We're to influence, encourage, and inspire. And we are to prepare our leaders to be effective on calls. Influence, encourage, inspire. Aren't those 3 great words? That's our job, to persuade. I was with a donor for breakfast right after Labor Day. This is a donor, a woman, a different woman, very active with our university, who had given us, $30,000 over her career, her life with us. And I asked her for $1 million. And I set up the call, just as I was talking about a few minutes ago, the Agashito Society, leadership from the front. I'll get to that in a minute. And this donor said, okay. This donor talked about all the reasons why it was difficult to say yes. It had nothing to do with how much money she had. It had to do with social reasons. And I very kindly challenged her on those. Lyle is running this one down, but she's repeatedly said, I'm going to do it. Again, these are complex. So I saw her at an event, kind of a social hour in an event, and she was with one of her friends, and the three of us were chatting, and it was great to be with our donors. And she turned to her friend and she said, Martin can be terribly persuasive. I loved it. I loved it. Why? Because of the benefits that are going to come her way by stepping up in this transformational way. I loved it. We want to be the most persuasive people on the planet as fundraisers. There's nothing wrong with being persuasive. Don't we want to be persuasive about what matters most, those organizations that we represent? Absolutely. So no two leaders are alike. We need to prepare our leaders. When you bring leaders on calls, they come in various shapes and sizes, don't they? We have to think about our leaders. What can our leader do best on a call? And advise our leaders and prepare those calls that can feature our leaders in the best possible way. Now, you may have a leader who's a rock star, who came out of fundraising, who is a great solicitor. Okay, you don't have to ask for the money, but you set it up so that it's going to work flawlessly. Or, in our case, Chancellor George could ask for the money, but he's so much better at these other ways. That's where we focus the Chancellor. And I'll sit down with the Chancellor, by the way, as we prepare a call, and I'll say, here's the structure of the call. This is what we're doing when. This is why we need to do this here. And then we get there, and he'll do what he kind of feels like doing. But he gets it, right? He's the Chancellor. I mean, he's my boss. I go with the flow, but I make sure we return the course, we get things to happen. And his impact is just so very, very powerful. So we work with leaders. We think about their abilities. We think about their personalities. We want to maximize what they're best at, and in order to raise money. Maximizing volunteers. A great volunteer on a visit, so powerful. But you have to prepare them. You have to prepare them. And finally, calling forth leadership. Fundraising, the act of giving, calls forth leadership. It brings out the leader. They make a gift they never thought they never contemplated they would make. They give a gift that's sets something in motion that's so good for others. It calls forth leadership in them. And I want to end with, in terms of my comments from here, with a theme that's been really powerful, and you might want to think about it. I call it leadership from the front. They've been using it about 2 years now. What I'll do, leadership from the front, what does that mean to me? What that means to me is that someone who is an extraordinary leader. They may run an organization, they may be the founder of the organization. They may be in the top echelon of an organization. They are the ones that take risk, whose judgment is relied upon, with great consequences sometimes, of very public nature. They're the ones with whom the buck stops. And we have leaders from the front like that are active in our university. They advise us, they give us good counsel, they volunteer, they go on calls, they're generous donors. We engage with them as much as we can because of the value they bring to our institution. You'll see them on billboards. And what I'll do on a call is, like I said, I'll talk about perhaps the Agashito Society, and then I'll say, I've been having this conversation with some of our donors, and I'm wondering what you will think. And I'll describe this leadership from the front, conceptually. And then I'll say, it's obvious. You're a leader from the front. In your business, in St. Louis, and then I'll say, and even more gratefully, I appreciate how you've been a leader from the front for the university. And then I'll describe how that's the case. I won't do this unless somebody qualifies for this. It's so powerful. It's just so powerful. So when I get later to the solicitation, saving the best for last, what I'll say is, John and Mary, as we talked about earlier, you are outstanding leaders from the front in this community and for our university. Would you once again consider stepping forward and exercising that leadership from the front? And then I would go on and tell them exactly what I have in mind. It's just powerful. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I have some notions. All right. It gets to their self-identity. To define yourself as a leader is a very, very powerful identifier. Very powerful. People spend their careers in business reaching to a point where they become that leader from the front. They've aspired for it, sometimes for decades, and worked towards it. To be recognized for that in this way is very, very powerful. So when I ask them then for the request and the reason, the response that has been yes every time. Now it's not always yes to exactly what I want, but it's I want to do everything I possibly can to help you in these circumstances. Now you may not use the theme leadership from the front. You could use luminaries of our organization. You have your own terms. But to use this idea of recognizing extraordinary people for the extraordinary people that they are, again, predisposes them to say yes and do what they can to help us. So I'll end with that thought.